Justice Served TV is on the air. And look at, there's Linda Kenny Bodden. Linda is obviously on assignment, and so we are very happy to have Bob Bianchi, Unspoken Riz, is back in his chair. That's become very popular. See, there it is. You got your own badge and everything. How you doing, man?
Oh man, I love it. I love the show. I love the music. It gets me going. All week I've been on TV in various places, but
we see you.
Nothing like the energy of the show and you and Linda in action photos. Let's do this.
Okay, so you may have noticed the ASAP Rocky trial ended. I don't know if you were deep into that, as so many people were, but first reaction to the acquittal, and then we're going to get into some of that.
Listen, you know me, Michael. I go right to it. I think this guy Lewin's a joke. I've said this before. I say it again. I say it whether it's Durst or whether it's here. I find it so peculiar that a prosecutor's office disrespected their staff to a point that they get this guy Lewin and like as a pinch hitter to come in or a relief pitcher because they don't have the staff to do better than that. That's point one. Look, bombastic, arrogant. I love all that. I love it. That's me. But this guy's got an irritating quality about him that it's not surprising. I bet you he's lost a lot of cases merely because of his attitude. So it's a lesson to your viewership, many of whom I know are young budding lawyers and crime aficionados, that I've seen some very skilled lawyers that were horrible in the courtroom because they irritated to the juries to the point where they got acquittals as prosecutors. He needs to step back. There's a lesson on how not to do it. Tacopina, on the other hand, is a lesson on how to do it. He was entertaining. He was his own style. You may like that style, not like the style. It's not the point. So he may be as bombastic and as arrogant, but he was making effectual points before the jury. And my last point about this goes back to being a prosecutor, where I have to say, it all came down to Relli, Michael. It came down to Relli. And the prosecutors, when I was one, we would sit down and we would interview our witnesses, and we would know whether we had good witnesses or bad witnesses, credible witnesses, not credible witnesses, witnesses that we trust to a jury, that we ask them to give the ultimate punishment, a conviction, taking somebody's liberty away, or sit there and listen to the person and say, you know what, I'm just not comfortable that this is the competent evidence necessary to bring this case. This case should never have been brought. So I am glad it's a not guilty. I'm glad it's a resounding defeat for prosecutors who, and you know I'm a big prosecutor fan, was one half my career and ran an agency, but you know what? This garbage that they're presenting to juries, I mean, it's a not guilty, but at what cost? The cost financially, the cost emotionally, that they, thank God that I'm sorry to go off, ASAP and Tacopina were given a get out of jail free card because the prosecutors knew their case was weak. They knew that it was a bunch of garbage. They knew it wasn't provable, and they dangled the probation, no jail time card out there. But this defense lawyer and defendant decided they were going to slay it out and they were going to fight, facing over 2 decades in prison if there was a conviction. People should not be put in that position. The prosecutor should have evaluated Relli's testimony for what it was, dismissed this case, and not wasted everybody's time. Okay.
And scene. Now, you just spent more time analyzing their case than the prosecution spent prepping for it, in my opinion, especially Relli. How do you spend even 2 minutes talking to this guy and believe anything that he has to say? So I believe, and that's part of the reason that Lewin parachuted in, there's also some political backstory with Gascon leaving and Hochman coming in and guys being demoted and then promoted. But they brought him in because at the last minute, somebody said, shit, this guy Relli, we don't know enough about what's going on here. And that's what led to our reporting that there was some unethical, let's just say, decision-making on the DA's part. We reported that from sources, and it is still, at this moment, as of yesterday anyway, something that nobody's talked about, because we talked to Joe a couple of days ago on Monday before the jury began deliberating on Tuesday, and the only question he wouldn't answer was related to this ethics question, because we had been reporting that the judge had concerns about the prosecution continuing with the case ethically. That part, even though the gag was lifted when the jury got the case, that little nugget relating to a bench conference was still gagged. And so Joe was unable to talk about that. Interestingly, though, your friend, Mr. Lewin, he decided that because Joe did an interview with us on Monday, that he therefore had violated the gag order. That was his take. So what I've got for you here, and I want to get your reaction to this. This is from, let me dig it up here. I know.
When you're saying you mean he spoke to you and Linda, Michael?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
And so, yeah, we had the exclusive on that on Monday, and it was a great, like 45, 50-minute interview. And then, but again, when it got to that question, he was, he was not able to answer that question. What I should do is show you that first. It's a pretty quick back and forth. Let me see if I can find that. My Rolodex here. My modern version of Rolodex is it's kind of a mess. Let me see if this is the right portion of it, and we'll learn together whether we got it right or not. So again, Joe comes on. We talk
Okay,
about a
so
lot of
we
stuff.
have been on this, as you know, right from the beginning, and we reported because we didn't have access to you, but we had other sources that the judge was concerned after the Relli's questioning. That's the main witness against your client. That's what this case is about, really.
Mhm.
After Relli's question about the prosecution continuing with the ethics going on, and I think that may have something to do not only with the questioning, but I want you to discuss with us the shakedown. Did you ever tell the prosecutor's office, the DA's office, that your client this was a shakedown and they continue to go forward? That's my first question. That's A. Number B, did the prosecution in writing ever acknowledge that the judge told them that there may be an ethics issue? I don't know if you have it, if you can tell us what it is. If you don't want to tell us what it is, it's fine, because we're going to ask the DA.
Yeah, well, good luck with that one. Good luck getting an answer from the DA on that one. There is one, there was one part of the gag order still in effect, and it has to do with a particular sidebar conference that we had regarding questions that you're asking me right now. So in that regard, I can't really speak to anything the judge said at a sidebar during Relli's testimony. But, look.
So that's the crux of it, right? So he was very straightforward in saying, hey, I can't talk about that. That is still something that is gagged. And so yesterday morning before the jury, I'm not sure they had the case. I think this was maybe simultaneously with them being handed the case. But there were two motions in front of the court, one from the defense, which had to do with how they felt the prosecution misled the jury, not unusual for Mr. Lewin. And then the other had to do with this, did he or did he not violate the gag order? So that is what I want to share with you. That is, I think we have that here. Where we go? Let's see. Again, this is Judge Arnold. I think this is Judge Arnold. Hold on. Let me back off here. I do not have that one. Stand by. So he comes right out of the gate with this conversation, the judge, and addresses it straight up, saying, hey, you guys, this interview took place. He listened to it several times. He noted it word for word to make sure that there was not a violation of the gag order. And I don't have it for you here. I thought I had that, doggone it. Anyway, Missy, if you happen to spot it and can pull it up, let me know. Anyway, he quotes what you just heard. Joe saying, hey, that's the one thing I can't talk about, right? So he mentions Linda Kenny Bodden. He mentions me. They don't mention Justice Serve TV, but they did give a plug to both of us for having this conversation and clearly decided there's no gag order violation here. So denied. And he also denied the motion by the defense, unfortunately, which was, I think he had a little better legs, because Lewin told the jury that this video compilation of the shooting was appropriate. They married video with audio, with video that had no audio, and tried to sync them up so that people could get a sense of when the gunshots happened. But the timing was off. Judge said, I don't think they really looked at it that closely. What's a second or so of out of sync video? So anyway, it didn't work, and he denied both of those motions. So my question for you is on the gag order. Have you been in a situation where a gag order is parsed out in such a way that you got, part of it's relieved, part of it is not? And at what point, I would think now, after a verdict, can't get much more final, all gag orders are out, done.
Well, listen, I honestly, I've never been involved in a case where there's been a need for a gag order, and I've tried a lot of high-profile cases.
Yeah.
And that's probably the function of our ethics rules. And I'm always curious about these other jurisdictions. I think we abide by pretty similar rules, but those rules basically say, especially with respect to prosecutors, but all attorneys, that extrajudicial statements, those are statements that are made outside the courtroom or in the context of a court proceeding, are unethical, and that you are to try your case in the court of law, not in the court of public opinion. So, for example, when I was the county prosecutor, there was a lot of, just to give you a flavor of how difficult this was, tension, because there's also an executive order in our state and in many states. It says the prosecutor has an obligation to also come forward with information to advise the public with regard to proceedings of a public interest. So you see, Michael, you wind up in a conflicting situation. And I actually, if you don't mind me going off on a tangent.
Oh, no, go run.
I think that your audience would enjoy this. Went to the Prosecutors Association one time. There's 21 counties in our state and 21 head county prosecutors. I was one of 21. And I brought this up. I said, well, do you guys see a contradiction here? I mean, the ethics rules say we can't talk about a case, but yet there's an executive order that says we're required. And everybody started off, oh, it's not a problem, and I do this, and I do that. And everybody wound up being on a different page, and pandemonium broke out in the group as to what was acceptable or not acceptable. So that is a balance. And the reason that the ethics rules are the way they are is that our ethics people, and I think this is, again, a United States rule, is that they don't want these cases tried in a court of public opinion. It's a problem. And today we have to worry about the impact on jurors even greater because we can't police when people are getting in, like we could when there were just newspapers. I've been in murder cases where they said, Your Honor, I walked by a newsstand and I saw an article's title. And then the judge would voir dire the juror and ask them if they, would this influence or affect them. You can't do that anymore. So and yet there's another piece where it just seems like everyone is out there and they're speaking to media. Tacopina, to your particular point, I don't know what was said at sidebar, so I can't say. But
yeah, none of us do. We have a sense. We reported it. But basically, yeah, you're right. There's been no public statement from the court or from any of the attorneys.
I would accept Tacopina, who seems to me to be the much more credible source of information, the more honorable source of information, that when he literally is saying, I can't talk about this because it's subject to the gag order, that he is making in his mind a distinction between the things that were gagged and the things that were not gagged. So in the end, the judge is going to make a decision if this is pursued any further, whether there was a violation of the court order. And then usually they're going to make a determination as to whether it was a willful violation of the court order. And if the judge finds that it is in fact a willful violation of a court order, the judge has remedies at law as well as going potentially after the license via an ethics complaint that can be filed. Do I think that's going to happen with Tacopina? No. I'll tell you the person who I think went over the line in terms of disrespect to the judicial proceedings, disrespect to the court, failure to follow court orders, conduct unbecoming of an attorney in a courtroom, and you're not going to be surprised who I tell you who I think that is.
Lewiner? Yeah.
I mean, and you know what, Michael? One last thing about him. Here's the thing that I'd like to say to him, something that we said to one of our assistant prosecutors who could not win a case if literally the defendant said, I'm guilty and I did it. The juries would still say not guilty. They
hate the guy so much.
He was such an ass in front of the jury. He was condescending, dripping arrogance. And a judge pulled him aside. And we were like, look, it's like the scorpion and the frog guys out there. The analogy, like, why would I bite you, the frog? I'll drown as well. And he does it. And when the frog is drowning and the scorpion is drowning, the frog turns to the scorpion and says, why did you do that? You killed us both. And the scorpion says, because it's in my nature. Right. Yeah. And so we didn't believe that our friend could change, but he did. And he became a killer prosecutor. Wow. He went from not being able to win a case to never losing a case because he tweaked his personality. It's very hard to do. This guy, Llewellyn, is a one-hit wonder. He keeps doing the same speed constantly all the time.
He used a lot of the same stuff from Durst in his closing. The forest for the trees picture, the donut. Wait, I didn't know if I could get him on or not, but I got Mr. Lewin.
Oh, man. Hey,
So
look,
he's
I'm a peaceable man. Look, I'm saying to the guy, because I've been really super critical of him for years. Okay. I'm not saying he's a bad guy. I'm not saying that his grandmother's ugly. Okay. I'm just saying that if you take some zip off you're trying to do the right thing. Maybe I'm going to give you the benefit that you're trying to do the right thing. You need to change your style. It's not good for you. It's not good for your loved ones who have to deal with you outside the courtroom should you be this way. And it's certainly not good in winning a case. You can still be good, aggressive, effective, arrogant, and bombastic. Just take a little zip off that fastball, brother.
Yep. It's just, I mentioned the other day that in a close case, he can lose the case for you. This case wasn't even close. Well, to me, it was never an issue. But in a close case, he could lose it for you. Oh, look who's chiming in. Well, hello, all. Thank you, Bob Bianchi, for subbing for me today. She has a question. The DA represents the people. Isn't Rocky one of the people of California that have an ethics duty? That people have an ethics duty to? I think it's rhetorical, but go ahead.
Let me see if I have a question. DA represents the people. Of course. I mean, look, being a prosecutor is big. Let's not minimize this. It is the most respected role I've ever had in my career, and I exercised it with tremendous humility. I was worried about the power I had as a prosecutor because I have the power to protect society, or I have the power to do a lot of damage. Prosecutors are given a lot of discretion, and they're given that discretion. It's reposed in you that you will use your judgment and you will use your wisdom and you use your experience. This is why I'm profoundly saddened by the lack of experience of prosecutors. It's no longer a meritocracy, Linda Kenny Bodden, as you know. There's not even a hint anymore in the appointment of people who have a skill set. It's been prostituted so badly that people that don't belong in that position of power and authority are allowed to reside there. And then trust me when I tell you, as the leader, the rest of the assistant prosecutors will follow the lead. And if you are ethically temperamented and you are letting them know that your job is to do justice, and that does not mean hitting a fly with a sledgehammer, that means over prosecuting a case. It doesn't mean going on marginal cases and bringing it before the jury. It means that dismissal is just as powerful as a conviction in the right instance. If you are that kind of person with that temperament, if your North Star is always guided towards doing the quote unquote right thing, not the full speed, all of that's not. Look, as a prosecutor, Michael, I go on philosophically about this. The greater power I had was that 90% of the cases, I had the ability with my authority to be able to make somebody a better person, to give them rehabilitation, mental health counseling, addiction counseling. Now, there were a percentage of people that need to be put away for as long as humanly possible, but they represented a fraction of the cases. So even in this particular case, I mean, what was the harm here? You have an unreliable witness, you have an unreliable prosecution, you have unreliable facts, you have virtually no injury to the individual. I personally think that maybe both sides are right. Maybe he thought he got shot and he didn't. He got injured in the scuffle. Who knows? But is this the case? Is this a case you want to die on that hill? So it's a long-winded answer to say, yes, Linda Kenny Bodden, the district attorney represents everybody, but that's when the power is put in the hands of a person with the right temperament, the right skill set, and the right background to know when to pull the trigger, no pun intended, and when not to.
I should say, Missy found that audio that I wanted to play for you. So let's take a look at that. This was the judge. Ooh, that looks very slow. No.
Issue regarding the gag order. I don't need any response from anybody. I don't want any response from anybody. I was forwarded the part that was believed that Mr. Tacopina violated the gag order, and I had to listen to it a number of times, and I wrote it down word for word. And this is what Mr. Tacopina said when he was interviewed by, is her last name Bodden?
Hey, you're famous.
That's Kenney. I'm not sure her last name. And her partner is Brian.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Bodden asked you if you could comment on what was said at the sidebar, and this is what you said. There is one part of the gag order still in effect. Actually, that's not right. There was only one part of the gag order. But anyway, there's one part of the gag order still in effect, and it has to do with a particular sidebar conference that we had regarding the question that you are asking about right now. In that regard, I can't really speak to anything the judge said at the sidebar during Relli's testimony. I do not believe that that is a violation of the gag order. That's the ruling. I don't need any response from anybody else.
So there. So
Shut up, Lewin.
So shut up and quit crying. Okay, so we have the verdict was pretty interesting yesterday. I mean, just how it played out because you know, how many verdicts? Take a wild guess. How many verdicts do you think you've taken?
How many have I taken?
Yeah,
over 100.
Yeah, I mean, you know, but it never gets easy. There's always drama, right?
Yeah.
And this one, I'm gonna zip through some of this just to get to the drama. Let me ask you this: have you ever had a situation where they polled the jury before the verdict?
No.
It's the weirdest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, I mean, the polling of the jury is supposed to be an opportunity after the verdict's announced in order for the jury to rescind its decision.
Right, and to verify, because there's a case I covered down south where twice they got it wrong. The jury was not unanimous.
I've seen a jury on not my case, but a friend of mine's case, who 2 times actually, who reversed their decision during the polling.
Yeah, and in the case that I'm talking about, there ended up being 3 trials because not only did it happen the first time, it happened the second time. So they had 2 hung jury mistrials after a unanimous decision was not unanimous. It was weird. So during this whole period of time, you know, these guys, can you imagine this? Look at, you know.
So I want to just say something, if you could just stop that for a minute.
Sure. Yeah, there ain't much happening because the jury is looking at the form. So go ahead.
Yeah, can you freeze that?
Sure.
Okay, so here's a couple. Look at this picture. To me, it said a lot. I was on air literally when the verdict came in, and commenting as it was happening contemporaneously. First of all, I'm going to note, because I can do this on this show, that's why I love being on the show, that Joe Tacopina is like jacked. Look at the muscular structure of that guy's back. I mean, holy freaking cow.
Yes. Well, have you heard the comment? Did you hear the comment from Miss Shorty, who's one of our fans in Australia? That they have a thirst for him. And I'll leave it at that. Okay, go ahead.
Well, I'm not saying that. I'm not going that far here in Jersey, but I will respect the back. But look at the body positioning here. Arms folded. The tenseness when ASAP Rocky was there. You can't see it now, but obviously because it's not a video. You can. I watch as an EMT. By the way, we are very skilled at watching people's respirations in difficult situations, and he's starting to get not hyperventilating, but you could see his heart rate is going up, his respiration going. There is nothing more intense, and I had goosebumps as I'm watching this than sitting there. Especially, listen to what I'm saying here, Michael. It's always intense when you care about what you do on both sides. It's always intense. But I believe that Joe Tacopina believed he was in the worst position that any defense lawyer can be in. And that is, he's not resting on the very laudable principle that a defense attorney's job is to not say a person's guilty or innocent, but to make sure the government proves its case beyond a reasonable doubt. That they are the fortress to protect the person's constitutional rights. But the worst place you could be as a defense lawyer is when you really believe your client's innocence. When you genuinely believe that there's a guy right to you, that right next to you gave up his right to speak, gave up his right to defend himself, gave everything of his life, his family, his money, his career, his future, I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it, handed to a defense lawyer, Joe Tacopina in this case, and said, please save me, I didn't do this. It's a tremendous power. People don't realize that the defendant's giving up so much when he could have easily walked away with a probation and no jail time and facing 2 decades in jail. So don't ever underestimate the intensity of what is happening in that picture mentally and emotionally going on in the heads of these individuals. It's not just on TV and you're watching, it's real. And when you're there, you can feel the heat literally, of the bodies. You can smell the fear. You can smell it. Your senses are, it's so powerful. It's so pure. It's so pristine that it's addictive.
And you're making the point that every second, every syllable that this process is drawn out is just intensified. So you have at least, well, we're at 2 minutes in. Let's see before they actually do anything. And they're just standing, as the jury, one by one or two by two, are looking over the verdict form, right, to make sure that it's correct as they recall.
Maddening.
Oh. And the judge is instructed, okay, number 6, you look at it, and 7, you look.
Right now, Tacopina's looking here, and he's like, "Will you please end this, Judge?
Are you
what
crazy?
Is the decision?"
I mean, they're swaying in unison there. I think Joe said at some point that Rocky said to him, "I can't breathe." And Joe's like, "I can't either." So I mean, look at this. This is. I think this may be an 8th Amendment violation, cruel and unusual punishment. Even
the lawyer on the other side, he was very demonstrative.
That's
too.
Chad. He's very good. Yeah, part of the team there.
For 11?
Yeah, now we're at number 11. I'm going to let this play out because I want people to just sense this kind of drama and anticipation. What if you were in either role, the attorney or the defendant?
Right. You look at the back of Rocky's jacket, you can see like the muscle contract, the breathing. Right where that V is, you see that?
Yeah.
The Los Angeles Superior Court, County of Los Angeles.
Okay, here we go.
People of the State of California versus Joaquin Mayers, case number BA 508142-01. We, the jury in the above entitled action, find the defendant, Joaquin Mayers, not guilty of the
And the winner of our defendant vault competition is ASAP Rocky. I think he did clear 6-7 feet with that leap over the front row.
Hold it down. Verdict has to be read on count.
Repeat again. We, the jury, above entitled action, find the defendant, Joaquin Mayers, not guilty of the
First count, second count.
in violation of Penal Code Section 245, Section B, a felony is charging count 1 of the information this 18th day of February 2025, jury seat number 9, 4%.
All right.
Title for the cause. We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant, Joaquin Mayers, not guilty of the crime of assault with a firearm in violation of Penal Code Section 245, Section B, a felony of charging count 2 of the information this 18th day of February 2025, juror seat number 9, 4%.
So the clerk kind of re-racked there, and it kind of confused folks, I think. So
What we asked of you at the very beginning.
yeah, just imagine, you're in that position, and now
Common sense.
life goes on.
By the law. And base your verdict on
At what cost?
Yeah, exactly. We're going to have tomorrow at 5 o'clock, we're going to have Michel Ward on, Dr. Michel Ward, who is part of the ASAP Rocky team, trial consultant, head shrinker, witness prepper. We used to have her on. I used to have her on Long Crime occasionally. She was the host of Mind of a Murderer, a few other things. Just an amazing team that they had assembled there to get the result that they did. And I don't know if you remember 12E as a witness, but the witnesses for the defense were so good. But again, if Relli, the prosecution star, is your standard, how good do you have to be, right?
The thing is, this is where being a good prosecutor comes into play, and I think that maybe maybe I'm even overlooking it. When I said before, when you're speaking to your witnesses downstairs, we saw how he was after prep, presumably. Okay, after prep.
Yeah, that's where I think that never happened. And if that did happen, that really gets back to our original reporting that the prosecution was continuing unethically, because there's no way, unless he told them one thing and testified completely different. Because if they heard what he then testified to, you could just tell he's lying. None of it made sense. None of it stacked up. None of it checked out.
Yeah, I mean, I feel that at a minimum, somebody was looking to save face here. And they were trying to score a conviction by any means necessary by making that plea offer. And when it didn't happen, they should have, in my opinion, they knew Relli. They knew the problems with Relli. They should have pulled the case.
Yes, and they did not. And that, Brooklyn is a good question that we're still unsure of. There are many possible answers. Why was Lewin attached to the case at hour 9? I think, this guy, we believe he was attached 3 weeks before trial, which is still pretty damn quick, right? He testified or stated to the court yesterday, I think it was, that he was added to the case the day before. No way.
I think the question's missing the point, Brooklyn. I think there's missing a point. I'll answer your question for you. I think that this guy is so bad, in my opinion, and it's so unusual that you have a pinch hitter come from another jurisdiction to come into your office. I mean, that's like me as the county prosecutor saying, I don't think my 45 assistant prosecutors can handle this kind of case. I'm going to go call somebody to come in, and they pick that guy. The only explanation is the person who made the decision to bring Lewin in wanted to lose the case.
I don't, here's some of the political backstory that may have something to do with it. We know that Lewin supported Hochman, the ultimate Gascon replacement, right? Gascon had demoted Lewin. Hochman wins, perhaps as a reward, because Lewin was in, the major crimes units and also some of the cold cases. They were all high-profile stuff, a la Durst. So Hochman comes in and rewards Lewin by giving him another high-profile case. That's one of the theories.
Isn't that what they did? Does that sound familiar to you?
I don't know. Give me more.
About the choice of prosecutor. This was in LA County, no?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Downtown.
Is that the same courthouse that O.J. Simpson trial occurred?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, I remember my father. Met right in front of me with Gil Garcetti. I think was the
Gil Garcetti. Yep.
And said to him, they're the best that you had in LA County. And he said, no, it was a political thing because, she complained that she should getting the case, but she wasn't one of their best. So he made a political decision to put a prosecutor that wasn't the best, according to him, in the courtroom. And then we saw what happened there too.
What happened. Yeah. Crazy. Yeah. So that's a theory. Nobody knows for sure. But if it was a reward, it kind of backfired. And we'll see where Lewin ends up, going forward, because if this was his swan song, it was an embarrassment. It was brutal. He could have just rested on the Durst matter.
But the other thing that, for the people that watch the show, and if you go back and you watch Lewin again, I'm not saying the guy's a bad guy. Maybe I'm being overly harsh.
He may be a super nice guy. I can only judge what I see.
Yeah, and I'm just judging on what I see as well. But he went after every shiny object. So those who are out there that are trying cases, you have to. I mean, when I've tried cases, I hope I don't like my adversary. So I want to try the case factually, but I also want to put the lawyer on trial too. And the Tacopino was continually baiting, and Lewin was taking the flashy object all the time.
Yep.
And in a courtroom, it's not an even playing field. The prosecutor has a higher burden. There's a different standard that's at play. He would have done a lot better if he didn't get so overwhelmed by so many minor things and arguing motions and objecting all the time or whatever, and concentrated on the facts of his case. He certainly would have given himself more peace of mind. You can't fight every battle. You got to know when it's important to make the fight, and you can't diminish your credibility in front of the judge. I mean, he had the judge rebuking Relli and him in front of the jury. That's a terrible look.
That is. It's also a terrible look when your star witness Relli is impeached by the prosecution because they didn't like the answer he gave to a prior question, knowing that on cross he was going to be outed as the liar that he was. That's just not good. You can impeach your witness if you want, but it ain't a good look, and it certainly don't pay off. And we talked about, once Relli finished, how is this case going to be resurrected? It wasn't, and there was just no way to save it. But to your original point, why in the hell is it even in court? Why are we wasting everybody's time putting people through that process with that kind of case? I don't get it. I just don't get it.
I can just, like, when I first started as a young assistant prosecutor, one of my mentors, so I won't even mention myself. I mean, I've had, we've had cases that they look good on paper, and you start to peel the onion back and the witnesses are wobbly, and, you just got that thing in you where you're like, it's not the kind of case I thought it was when I first started. And the first boss I had would be if you brought your concerns about the sufficiency of the proofs, you were considered weak. And I remember one time getting a note on my desk. I'm giving you all these insights, all these notes. This is the real world. And the note on the desk said, are you a defender of the marauders or are you a prosecutor? You need to make the decision. And the reason that was said to me was that I was questioning the innocence and guilt of an individual. And I almost left the office saying, I didn't buy in for something like this where people don't care about whether somebody's guilty or not. Go to let the jury call it. What do you give a shit? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
The second boss I had, which was only like 6-7 months later, was a completely 180-degree different guy. And he would bring you in and he would say, Bob, tell me, what are your concerns? Well, boss, I love this guy. I revered him. I adore him. He became an appellate division judge, a brilliant legal mind, very well regarded. It was just the beginning of his prosecutorial career, very beginning of my career. And I would say to him, what I made me uncomfortable. And he would say to me, he goes, you know what? You've laid out a cogent explanation as to why you believe that this case needs to be dismissed. And so I'm not going to ask you to do half a loaf and have the guy plead guilty. Here's what we're talking about right now. You go up there and dismiss the case. There's plenty more cases that you can backfill, that you can try and whatever. You did a good job because your job is to do justice and you support it from me, the reasons to dismiss the case. I love that guy. And
don't you wish that was the norm? You know, it's crazy that makes such an impression because it isn't the norm.
It's not the norm. And like, at least in my, like, we can get into this battle too. In my state, you're appointed by the governor. So when I became the head prosecutor, I had to go through a political process of being appointed by the governor with the consent of the Senate. And that is supposed to get you a better quality prosecutor rather than an elected person who, I think there's all sorts of conflicts with that. The problem though, is like in my state, unfortunately for many years now, mostly the prosecutors, like in my dad's time, were appointed by the governor, were very top level, top tier, highly experienced. But as time went on, the skill set and capabilities got lower and lower, and they're just selling it out, if you will. And so this is like my biggest bitch that I have with regard to the entire system, federal, state, throughout the country, is that we need experienced people because these are difficult decisions and it takes experience to know and navigate. And so I was able to, when I got the head job, I was able to reflect upon my boss, who was a giant in the field, and say, what would Carmen do? That was his name. What would Carmen Misano do? And I would use that experience in 20 years at that time of litigation experience to come to what I hoped was the just decision. You can't expect that to happen with prosecutors who are elected or inexperienced. And that is a big problem, not just with prosecutors, but with judges too.
Oh yeah, meritocracy. What an idea.
Oh, please.
Yeah, allegedly, maybe that's the same suit he wore the first day of trial too. It may or may not be. I heard that he had a new suit that Rocky and Rihanna somehow arranged for him to have a new suit. But he has those tailored. You ain't buying those off the rack. I'll tell you that. Am I right? Okay. So, here's a good question for you from Alicia B. What happens when a DA loses a case? Wait. I mean, you have your answer, I'm sure, right, Bob? You know what happens when a DA loses a case.
Are you going to show me?
I can show you what happens.
I see. That's not the answer I was going to give. The answer I was going to give is I wouldn't be able to tell you that. I don't know.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
I never lost a trials process.
Yeah.
But
wow.
listen, what happens? Here's the thing. I'm a very faith-based person, and I'm also my faith. Also, I'm also very philosophical by that, and I'm more of a Stoic. Okay, in philosophy. And the Stoics have this thing called an equanimity of purpose. And an equanimity of purpose, it means, and by the way, I learned this skill set as an EMT too. When I was a young teenager and you go into a scene and somebody's shot and they're bleeding out or stabbed, or you're in a high crime area and something's going on around you, you can't lose your senses. You have to be in control as best as you can. Your flight or fight response is going on. You have to learn to control that automatic nervous system that's going off, okay? And so I've learned the art as a lawyer, as a trial lawyer, that I never get too high and I never get too low with the vicissitudes of life, because I know there's going to be things that I'm going to lose or that are going to be taken away from me. And I know the things I'm going to have great success and great triumph. So I try not to get the equanimity is an equalness, an even keeledness about any of those things. So as a prosecutor, and I mean this sincerely, had I ever heard the words not guilty at trial, which I never did, I would have accepted that. But like, look, and that's not like Bob Bianchi is a great trial lawyer. Prosecutors should not lose trials.
Well, that goes back to your conversation with the guy that was so normal, level-headed. If the case sucks, you dismiss it, and there's another one coming down the assembly line.
And that makes you a great prosecutor. I always say when you're on your deathbed, confession. I give a TED talk, Mike. I don't know if you ever saw it. It's like Deathbed Confession, it's called. And at the end of the day, I'm not going to be saying how many people did I put in jail and for how long. I mean, there's some satisfaction in prosecuting a murderer who took somebody's life and putting them in for, yeah, absolutely. There's a definite satisfaction to that. But I think that the thing that I would always look towards is the people whose lives I've had a positive impact, that they've then had a positive impact on so many other people because we showed mercy, we showed compassion, we gave rehabilitation, whatever. So a prosecutor dismissing a marginal case should be one of the prouder moments of your career.
Yeah. Yep. And again, unfortunately, that seems to be something that doesn't happen as often as, and we've seen it lately. It just seems so many cases have made their way to a result defense oriented because prosecution was maybe worried more about a win than anything else. I wonder what he's like outside the courtroom. Does he shout, "Listen to my question," which was one of his key phrases there, which was so condescending. "You're so stupid. You don't understand my question. Bob, listen to my question."
Look, I've said it enough, right? He needs to retool. But I think the question is a good one because there's no doubt about the fact that there are pieces of me as a trial lawyer that are me on the outside, but very little. People have come into court and watched me try a case and like, holy crap, man, I've never seen, like, I never knew that you were that powerful or that aggressive or that like on crossing or whatever. So I do find, in fact, interestingly enough, when I'm on trial, I find I come out, and in my personal life, sometimes it's hard to turn the switch, especially if you're doing cross. And I remember one time I was out to dinner on a Friday night with my wife in the middle of a murder case, and she would tell me the plumber couldn't come. And I'm like, well, what time was he supposed to come? And when did he say? And when did he say? She's like, Bobby, she goes, everybody here thinks like you're arguing with me and you're talking about the plumber. So there are pieces that lap over. So
you ordered the steak and you said, well, how do you want it? You want the steak medium? Isn't it true you always have it medium?
Exactly. But listen, I think that kind of attitude is born out of fear. And if I were to sit with him, I'd say, you need to get your mindset straight. You need to understand, like, where's your equanimity of spirit here? I've taught a lot of lawyers over the years. You're really good. You're skilled. You're passionate. I'm not saying don't be passionate, but you need to, rein in. I've seen some horses that need to be reined in, and I've seen some horses that need a poker up their butt because they can't get them to do anything. I'd rather rein the horse in than try to teach somebody. So he's got raw skills. He just needs to calm down.
Yeah, but at 30 years, and he's happy to tell you, it's been 30 years. That
yeah,
old
my dad.
dog,
My dad used to say, "I'm sorry to cut you off, Michael." My dad used to say, so my dad's 92. He's still a practicing lawyer,
wow.
and he said to me, you can claim you got 30 years experience. It doesn't mean anything other than you've learned how to try a case the wrong way for 30 years really well.
Yeah. My point is, I don't know if this guy's changing. I hope he can. Maybe he will. Let's see. Larissa Harris, doesn't seem like prosecutors are seeking the truth, just winning in some cases. Now scary because most defendants get viewed as guilty and have to prove innocence. That's true. We heard one of the arguments that Joe was making in his closing that Lewin objected to was he said that all they care about is winning. That was an argument he was making. They want to win at all costs. And of course, Lewin thought that was an inappropriate argument. The judge said, "It's fine. That's an argument."
Yeah, I mean, it's silly. It's a silly statement. Of course, everybody wants to win.
And anyway, before we move on, because I do want to talk about the Karen Reed case, let's take a quick look at Joe and the client and family. This was just after the verdict.
Guys,
it was wild.
Look, guys, we're gonna guys. Let him speak. Hey, guys, we can't do this if everyone's gonna yell. We'll just have to leave. But listen, guys, listen.
Let Joe talk.
Guys, chill, man. Relax.
No, I need your lawyer's contacts, man.
Guys, Bottom line is, we're grateful for the jury. They saw through this mirage of a case. We said from day one he was innocent. He turned down a plea for almost no jail time because he was innocent. And I've always said this was an extortion. The extortion played out live in color in court. You know, we've always said what it says is that the district attorney should look long and hard at prosecuting Tyrell Efron.
Selective prosecution.
We've said that from day one. They should do it now. They have him admitting to perjury. They have him committing extortion. The jury saw through it and came to an enormously quick and speedy verdict, the right verdict, and we thank this jury. And again, for me, my partner Chad, we're honored to have represented this amazing family. Rocky is one of my closest friends, but he's also just a great person. We love him. Liana, they are seriously the greatest people, and I said I love them, and I really do love them, and I got emotional in my summation because I care about them. This is one of the happiest days of my life, and I'm happy for them because they've earned this and deserve it.
Congratulations, family. Congratulations.
Thank you, bro.
Let's all say amen. Amen.
I'm jealous.
Guys.
Yeah, you can. I mean, you know, you've seen those scenes before, played out maybe in a little, smaller stage, but you know what he was feeling. You know what his client's feeling. It's an amazing feeling.
I'm jealous. I'm jealous. I wish it was me.
That's very honest. I like that. And so, what do you think about the perjury of Relli? Clearly, is anybody ever going to pursue that?
No. I mean, one, it's against public policy for prosecutors to prosecute people that they had on the witness stand, which in essence would be them admitting they know that he was lying and they continued with the prosecution. So.
And that gets to our suborning perjury discussion and the ethics, and apparently something that may or may not still be gagged that we reported early on. So anyway, we'll see how it goes. I think most of the polling we had on our own poll, 85% thought not guilty. I've seen others at 80%. It's one of the more overwhelming decisions that people agreed with. There's always somebody that's going to disagree for whatever reason. But this one, I think most people believe the jury got it right. So Speaking of other cases that maybe the jury tried to get it right and wasn't given much help by the court, Karen Reed, as you know, that case is coming back April Fool's Day. We think it's going to happen, but in the meantime, there have been all kinds of different hearings and motions and discovery. And yesterday was a doozy.
Unspoken Riz.
Yes, I told you have your own badge. There it is. It was one of the many hearings that had to do with the discovery between the parties. I'll try and kind of synthesize it so we get to the nugget. The prosecution is trying to, of course, have the ARCA report and investigation materials removed from the case. They testified in the first case in a limited manner. Federal investigation, ARCA was hired by the feds as an independent investigation arm. That report indicated that the subject vehicle driven by Karen Reed did not hit John O'Keefe. Now, how he died, how that relates to how he died, that's all kinds of different questions. But their position was that large SUV did not back into John O'Keefe. Okay. It was allegedly a very much independent report. Nobody hired anybody. It was a Fed investigation that was underway in relation to another case. Well, yesterday, Mr. Brennan, who is the new guy they've brought in on the prosecution team, he starts telling the court that maybe it wasn't so independent, that maybe there was some contact between Alan Jackson on the defense team and the ARCA people relating to these reports. He has said, Mr. Jackson, during the first trial, on the record, that there was no such contact of any kind. The court wanted to make sure, Judge Bev wanted to make sure that it was truly independent, because that would affect whether or not she would allow it in, whether or not it could be cross-examined in a different way, whether there was bias shown. Is it a hired gun or is it not a hired gun? So that was the setup for yesterday's hearing. And it's kind of clinking along. It goes for less than an hour when the court hears this information that suggests maybe there was a contact between the ARCA folks and the defense team, specifically Alan Jackson, to the point that there was an invoice out there for almost $24,000 to the defense team, right? Okay. So now, having said that, let me see if I can find the moment of truth here. And this is very important to hear, not just what the judge says, but the follow-up by Brennan is a chronology of emails back and forth between the key players, because that may or may not set up what could be. We'll talk about the remedies after this. What are the possible remedies? What could the judge do?
All right. So the Commonwealth just provided the court with information that causes me grave concern. The implications of that information may have profound effects on this defense and defense counsel. So for that reason, I'm going to suspend today so that when we meet again to address these issues, all affected will be appropriately prepared. So I'll see you a week from today at 11 o'clock in the morning. You can tell me now if that is impossible for you. And where Mr. Brennan, where the federal authorities have been kind enough in the past to allow me to have copies of everything, would you be kind enough to call over there or check with whomever you were dealing with to see if I can in fact get a copy of everything that you just read?
I can, and there's a brief chronology I think Your Honor should be aware of. If I could add that right now, it would take me less than a minute. The chronology is December 4th, we sent another tour request, 2024. January 6th, we filed our notice of intention to exclude ARCA experts. January 30th, 2025, the United States Attorney's Office sent a response to both ours and the defense requests. Without any prompting, on February 6, 2025, the defense and the prosecution received an email from the U.S. Attorney's Office saying that the contract had ended with the ARCA experts and that if either party wanted to engage, the original materials are still protected. This was a change in position about whether a party could engage. On February 11th, we filed the motion to exclude. February 13th, the defense provided us the emails that I read. February 13th, 2025, I think I said the federal government. It was the defense. February 13th, 2025, they sent us the emails and the direct examination outline. We reached out to the federal government again because I was curious about the change in position on February 6th, that the contract has ended, but that parties could contact ARCA. Obviously, the Commonwealth is in no position to contact ARCA because that would naturally preclude the defense from retaining them. So we've refrained and we will not reach out to them.
All right, so the information that was provided to you, not from the federal government, I'd like a copy of before you leave the courthouse.
Okay, so what the hell's happening here? Just, I mean, let me tee it up and then you give me the possible remedies. This judge is concerned that there may be contact between the defense and these allegedly independent experts who testified in trial number 1. And if so, what's she going to do? Get rid of him? What are the options?
No, I don't know enough yet. I mean, to me, the prosecutor's explanation left a lot to be desired in terms of timeline and what's being argued. So I'll tell you what I think he's trying to say, but we'll have to see what the evidence is. First off, I note that the judge is really torqued up here.
Oh yeah.
She's her vocal intonation, her hand is shaking. And she's making comments that are essentially a shot across the bow to the defendants and moreover to the defense lawyers of inappropriate conduct. So I've never understood this whole ARCA, whatever it is, group.
Yeah,
that
ARCA. The feds hired them. They're truly a company. They're not federal agency. Yeah.
So they hired an independent contractor, came out and gave a theory of the case that is contrary to the government's position right now, stateside. And so the defense called these witnesses at trial. Now, clearly, as part of discovery, anything that could be used to cross-examine and impair the credibility of witnesses should be turned over. And I think that the argument here is that a representation was made, and I don't know if this is true, that the experts were not being paid by the defense. And
correct.
I also heard that there are emails apparently going back and forth between the witness and the defense attorneys about, hey, we hope that you guys win, or I don't
And
know.
if you don't need me to say this, I won't say this.
Yeah,
yeah. That was
so.
yeah.
So this is hugely now. Now we're gonna have to get. So I'm sorry. It's not as simple as people want to make it. The judge is going to have to listen to all of these facts, have to make a judicial determination as to what the facts are. Then they're going to have to look at their court rules about what disclosure the court rules require to be given to impair the credibility of a witness. For example, the defense is sure to argue that nothing about the money or nothing prevented them from asking the question, cross-examining the witness. They came in on behalf of the defense. It would be normal to ask witnesses this question under cross-examination. What was your arrangement? What's your fee arrangement? Do you have a contract? Are you being paid? Aren't you being paid? Or just randomly call. I was under the impression they were just randomly called, and I thought it was a brutal piece of evidence,
of course,
against prosecutors.
And that's why they're so torqued about it, because it was represented to them, and everybody watching the trial, both in the jury never heard the back and forth, but there is true independence here with this reporting. And so everybody, man, that's a gift. What a gift to the defense to have this independent report that supports their client's innocence. Well, that doesn't seem to be the case now.
Well, first of all, I mean, we go back to the principles that we were talking about with ASAP Rocky. As a prosecutor, I'm going to be very concerned if I have an expert that's hired by a government agency like the feds and says that this accident did not happen. I mean, again, I'm very nervous about this case, that the wrong thing is happening. And I'm just saying that from my prosecutorial perspective. I need to be convinced as a prosecutor. I've tried a lot of tough cases, but I was convinced that the person was guilty, not based on the prosecutor in this case literally said, Michael, well, do you think it's a big conspiracy that you have the police, the prosecutors, and all these people? And no, I don't think it's a conspiracy. I think that, and I've watched people push the ball down the wrong hill, and it rolls and it doesn't stop, and innocent people get charged and convicted of things they didn't do. It's such a sophomoric statement for the prosecutor to make that it makes me question them. And of course, the witnesses fell apart. You have all that. But to answer your ultimate question here, let's not also forget that the defendant has rights. And that these witnesses, before the defense paid them, before the guy wrote the stupid comment, I won't testify to that if you don't want me to. Yeah, you can be cross-examined on all of that. That's fair game to your credibility. But I don't see precluding the witness, because if the defense still wants to call them, you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater and deny a defendant the opportunity to present the defense because of the sins of the lawyer.
Well, that's what I think the remedy is, to oust the lawyer. Most of the team is pro hac vice, right? Which, of course, our viewers know means out-of-state attorney practicing in this state or that in Massachusetts at the approval of the court. The court, and they have rules, and you have to be attached to, in this case, Attorney Yannetti is the Massachusetts attorney. All the others are out of state, including Alan Jackson, who's from California. So he's there at the honor of his honor, her honor. And if she says that misrepresentation is a violation of everything that you are supposed to be here and standing for as an officer of the court, you're out of here. You're gone.
Well, I'll tell you, I think that'd be a bad move. And if I were the prosecutor in the case, I would be saying, Judge, here are my rules. I want everything. I want every communication. I want it ordered by the court. I don't want the witness precluded, and I don't want the attorney thrown off. And here's the reason. I'm creating constitutional error in the case as the prosecutor. Because
some Sixth Amendment violation?
Absolutely. You have a right to a counsel of your choosing. And again, I'm not going to penalize the defendant for the sins of the lawyer, but I will ask the judge to sanction them, fine-wise. I will ask the judge to maybe pay court costs and all that kind of nonsense. I will ask that everything be turned over to me. And I will ask the court to allow me to bring this information out in the subsequent trial. I think the prosecutor made a tricky comment that kind of is in my world, where he kind of said, well, I don't really know about whether they're going to testify or not testify. He said something to that effect. What he's saying, in essence, is I'm not telling you to preclude the witnesses. Does the prosecution have a right to cross-examine the witness? Yes.
Oh, and it makes him look worse. Of course, if he cross-examines with the information we now think he has, it really makes that witness and the defense look horrible.
So think about it. Tactically speaking, the prosecutor, if he's smart, here's why I love the law. I love trial law. Tactically, the prosecutor doesn't want to create error in the case by precluding a witness or throwing the defense lawyer out. And yet he's going to let the defense make the decision because the prosecutor wants that witness on the stand now, because now they've got the information that can attack the credibility and very well may have made a difference in the outcome of the first trial. So, and also lastly, last point, judges, like we talked about with ASAP Rocky, always have the ability, and I watched a judge do this, one of the most, I wasn't really impressed with her when I started to try the case, but I was afterwards, because she let a defense lawyer do all sorts of nefarious conduct, and we were like, why isn't she coming down on? Why isn't she? She had a list. She was checking it twice, and she kept writing everything that was naughty and nice. And when that trial was over, she gave a 95 thesis document to the ethics committee and asked that the lawyer be sanctioned and suspended for his conduct in the courtroom. But what she didn't do was deprive the defendant of his attorney or the witnesses, and he was found guilty, and now the conviction's clean.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, we'll see if Judge Bev handles it that way. It is going to be next Tuesday at 11 o'clock. Justice Serve TV will be there. I'm going to go up, and I expect some fireworks no matter what happens. And we'll definitely check back with you and get your take on what she decides to do. Does she get rid of Alan Jackson? And does she somehow otherwise punish the defense team? I don't know. But you read it right. You can see how she was gravely concerned about what she had learned. And she's also asked now Brennan for everything that is not protected by the original federal involvement. She wants all of that material. So it's a lot of back and forth emails that don't make the defense look so pretty good. So again, a collateral matter has nothing to do really with the merits of the case or the guilt or innocence of Karen Reed. So
yeah. And listen, something's going on here where I keep seeing Linda Kenny Bodden put out that you need to check to make sure Unspoken Riz gets. Do I get a prize or something?
You get nothing. You get nothing. You'll get nothing and like it.
You will get nothing.
No, it's we're continually, Bob, as I'm sure you do too. You're trying to play this algorithm game with YouTube. We have no idea what we're doing, but apparently hitting the like button is helpful.
Listen, you know what you're doing because you're partners with the great Jersey girl, Linda.
That's true. That was the best decision. And then after that, I'm just coasting.
You guys got the great background, the music. You got a little logo there that you put your camera up and hopefully you have some good guests too. So
occasionally, yeah. Bob, always a pleasure, man. Anytime you can step in, I appreciate it. Maybe next week you can step in for me because I think I'll be gone next Wednesday. Are you around next Wednesday?
I am not actually. Yeah, but we'll catch up sometime soon.
We'll do it. Hey, Bob, keep us posted on everything you're working on, and we'll check you next time.
Thank you. Peace,
Thanks,
guys.
buddy. We'll see you later. All righty, that's going to do it for me, Michael Bryant. Tomorrow, we do have Michelle Ward. She'll be on at 5 o'clock. Linda Kenny Bodden will be back. She is wrapping up her assignment. Oh, wait, there she is. Hey, MJB. We have a special guest tomorrow besides Michelle. Can we announce? I wish I could if I was sure who it was. If she's talking about Chris Tacopina, we do have an interview with him that I actually just did before we did this live. Just want to get his first take, having heard the verdict. Where was he? What happened? Talk to Dad, all of that. I don't know if you're talking about somebody else. It'll be a mystery to everybody. I don't know who it is. Wait. Oh, shit. Yes. So that may be tomorrow, maybe tonight, but we'll launch that. It's a pre-recorded. It's like a 15-minute interview. Yes, it is ASAP Taquito. So very good. Linda, I hope you're not texting and driving. It's really very dangerous. Don't do that. We will be back tomorrow at 5 o'clock. Again, Michelle Ward will be here. In the meantime, I'm Michael Bryant. Please try to do the right thing.